Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Attorney General Pamela Bondi.
Pam Bondi might have made a name for herself in the courtroom and on the political stage, but when it comes to her personal life, now that's where things really get messy. She's been married twice, both times ending in quick divorces, and then there was that high-profile engagement that mysteriously fell apart. If you know anything about Bondi, you know she's a fighter. She thrives in heated debates, intense legal battles, and political controversy. But when it comes to love, she just can't seem to make it work. For someone who spent her career trying to present herself as a powerful, put-together woman, her personal relationships tell a different story. 2 husbands, 2 divorces, and an engagement that never made it to the altar. What's really going on behind the scenes? Let's start with her first husband, Garrett Barnes. Now, most people enter marriage with the hope of building a lifetime partnership, a solid foundation of love and commitment. But Bondi and Barnes, they barely made it past the honeymoon phase. Their marriage lasted just 22 months, not even 2 full years before it crumbled. And while the exact details of their split remain a mystery, those who were around at the time have plenty to say about why things fell apart so fast. One of the biggest red flags in their marriage? Pam Bondi's obsession with her career. From the moment she stepped into the legal world, she had one goal: power.
And we went around the room and the president just basically asked a lot of us what was going on within our departments. And you know, what you shared from Marco earlier is so true. We all have known each other, the majority of us, for so long. And we're friends, and that's what makes a difference.
She wanted to climb the ladder as fast as possible, and nothing, not even her husband, was going to slow her down. According to people close to the situation, Barnes felt like an afterthought in his own marriage. It was as if he had married a woman who was already married to her job. He tried to be supportive, but at some point, he had to face the truth. He would always come second. And here's the thing, some men are okay with that. Some men can handle having a wife who's all about business, politics, and power. But Garrett Barnes, he wasn't one of them. Eventually, the distance between them became too much. The fights became too frequent, and he decided to walk away. Rather than keep competing with her career for attention, he filed for divorce and got out. That should have been a wake-up call for Bondi. Maybe she needed to find better balance. Maybe she needed to prioritize relationships a little more. But nope, Pam Bondi wasn't about to change for anyone. And that brings us to husband number 2, Scott Fitzgerald. Now, if Garrett Barnes ran for the exit, Scott Fitzgerald practically sprinted. If the first marriage was short, this one was even shorter. It didn't take long for the cracks to show, and before people even got used to calling them Mr. and Mrs., it was over. So what went wrong this time? Well, depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers. Some say that Bondi's second marriage wasn't really about love at all. Instead, it was about political optics. See, at this point, Bondi was deep in the legal and political world, and in many conservative circles, being a married woman made her look more relatable, stable, and traditional. A picture-perfect, powerful attorney with a loving husband, that's the kind of image she wanted to project. But the problem with a marriage built for public image? It doesn't last. Behind the scenes, things were rocky from the start. Bondi wasn't about to slow down her career for anyone, and Scott Fitzgerald quickly realized what he had signed up for. Some sources claim that he barely saw his wife, that they were constantly on different schedules, and that when they were together, it was more like a business transaction than a real marriage. At some point, he had enough. Just like Barnes before him, Scott Fitzgerald chose freedom over frustration. He filed for divorce, walked away, and never looked back. At this point, you'd think Pam Bondi would take a step back from relationships. 2 divorces in rapid succession? That's a pretty clear sign that something isn't working. But nope, Pam Bondi wasn't done yet. Enter Greg Henderson. Now, this wasn't just some casual fling. This was a full-on engagement, complete with a flashy ring and wedding plans in motion. It seemed like, finally, Bondi might have found someone who was actually willing to stick around. But just when it looked like she was headed down the aisle again, the engagement was suddenly called off. No explanation, no big announcement, just silence. So what happened? Nobody really knows. The official reason was never revealed, but there are plenty of theories. Some say Greg Henderson got cold feet. Others claim Bondi's past relationship issues started creeping in again. And then there are the more scandalous rumors, the ones that suggest there was some kind of betrayal involved. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain: Pam Bondi just can't seem to keep a man. Her ex-husbands have all moved on with their lives, and they don't seem to have this same pattern of failed relationships. Pam Bondi is still out here, single as ever, completely focused on her career. Some might say that's empowering. After all, not everyone is meant for marriage, and some people genuinely thrive when they dedicate themselves fully to their ambitions. But others, they might see a pattern, because let's be real, most people don't get married twice, divorce twice, and then have an engagement fall apart without some underlying issues. It's not bad luck. It's not just a coincidence. There's something deeper going on. Maybe Bondi was never meant to be married. Maybe she's the kind of person who simply can't balance a relationship and a high-powered career. And instead of admitting that to herself, she kept trying anyway, only to have it blow up in her face every time. Or maybe there's something about her that makes men run for the hills. Her exes have never come out and publicly trashed her, which is interesting in itself. Usually when relationships end badly, there's at least one person who has something to say. But in Bondi's case, silence. Not even a whisper of messy divorce battles, dramatic accusations, or bitter interviews. And honestly, that might be even more telling, because what if her exes don't even think she's worth the drama? What if, instead of sticking around to fight, they all just quietly packed their bags, signed the divorce papers, and kept it moving? No desire for revenge, no lingering anger, just an overwhelming relief to be free. Think about it. Garrett Barnes dipped after 22 months. That's barely enough time to adjust to being married. Scott Fitzgerald checked out almost as quickly. And Greg Henderson didn't even make it to the altar. That's not a string of bad luck. That's a pattern of men realizing, sooner rather than later, that life with Pam Bondi isn't what they thought it would be. So what is it about her that pushes men away? Is she too controlling, too cold, too focused on her own success to make room for a real partnership? Or is there something even deeper that we don't know about? One thing's for sure, Pam Bondi's personal life is just as much of a battlefield as the political arena she thrives in. But while she can fight her way out of legal trouble and public scrutiny, she hasn't figured out how to fight for love. And at this point, it doesn't seem like she even cares to try. She's made a name for herself as a tough, no-nonsense legal powerhouse, and maybe in her mind, that's enough. Maybe she's convinced herself that relationships are a distraction, that marriage is a weakness, and that her career is the only thing worth committing to. Or maybe, deep down, she knows the truth. It's not that she doesn't want love, it's that love doesn't seem to want her. Because let's be real, when 3 different men walk away from you, the common denominator is you.